Good evening, and thank you for being here. Today, I want to talk about something many people experience but rarely recognize until the damage is already done. The hidden, unsettling ways a narcissist uses money to gain control. We often think of financial problems in relationships as misunderstandings or differences in spending habits. But with a narcissist, it goes far deeper than that. Money becomes a tool, a weapon, and sometimes a trap. And the most shocking part is how quietly these patterns unfold. They don't announce themselves. They slip into your life disguised as generosity, confidence, or leadership. And by the time you start feeling the strain, the manipulation is already in motion. So tonight, we're going to peel back the layers and expose the 5 toxic, money-related behaviors that reveal exactly how a narcissist turns finances into a form of control. When you look closely at how a narcissist handles money, you start to see that for them, money is never just money. It becomes a symbol, a tool, and sometimes even a weapon. When a healthy person thinks about finances, they think in terms of sharing, planning, building security, and working together. But a narcissist sees money very differently. They see it as an extension of control, as something that gives them power over the people in their lives. It isn't just about buying things or paying bills. It's about positioning themselves as the one who decides, the one who dictates, and the one who stays in charge. This is why so many people who get entangled with a narcissist in relationships, romantic, familial, or even professional, start to feel financially suffocated without even realizing how it happened. A narcissist often creates an environment where you slowly begin to depend on them. They might start by offering help, appearing generous, or insisting they'll take care of everything. At first, it feels comforting, even romantic or supportive. You think you're being cared for, but over time, you notice you're losing access to your own decision-making power. They may question your purchases, judge how you spend, or make you feel guilty for wanting financial autonomy. Their generosity starts turning into surveillance, and their support morphs into control. If you start earning more, becoming independent, or making financial decisions without them, they feel threatened. Your growth disrupts their control, so they subtly or openly try to pull you back. They also create financial confusion on purpose. They may keep you out of important money conversations, hide details, or make the financial picture seem more complicated than it is. This allows them to maintain control because confusion keeps you dependent. When you're unsure, you defer to them, and that is exactly what they want. They thrive on being the one who decides where the money goes, how it's used, and what you're allowed to do with it. This control can become so normalized that you question your own capability, thinking maybe you really can't handle finances as well as they can. What makes this even more damaging is the emotional layer that sits on top of all this. Narcissists are skilled at making you feel obligated. If they paid for something, they won't let you forget it. If they covered a bill, took you on a trip, or made a financial gesture, they will bring it up later in arguments as proof that you owe them. Every act of financial help is actually planting a seed of future control. And slowly you start to feel that your life choices, your independence, and even your sense of worth are tied to their approval because the money seems to flow through them. This turns financial control into emotional captivity, creating a dynamic where you're constantly trying to keep the peace, not realizing how much of your power has already been taken. When a narcissist appears generous, it often feels larger than life. They may shower you with gifts, pay for extravagant dinners, or step in dramatically to save the day financially. To anyone watching from the outside, it looks like kindness. It looks like devotion. It looks like someone who cares deeply and gives without hesitation. And that's exactly the illusion they want to create. The problem is that with a narcissist, generosity is almost never rooted in genuine giving. It's rooted in strategy. They use generosity the way others use manipulation, quietly, subtly, and with a long-term goal in mind. The gift is not the gift. The gift is the leash that will be pulled later. Their generosity often comes fast and early, especially in romantic relationships. They want you to feel grateful, impressed, dependent, or emotionally moved. They want you to build a narrative in your mind that they are selfless, caring, and invested. Once you internalize that story, it becomes harder for you to question their motives later, even when something feels off. Their financial gestures create emotional credit they plan to cash in. What looks like kindness is actually groundwork. They want you to think you owe them something, not always immediately, but eventually when it benefits them the most. This weaponized generosity also shows up in the way they perform for others. They love being seen as the savior, the provider, the one who swoops in to fix everything. Public admiration is fuel for them, and giving money or paying for things becomes a performance stage. You may notice how they light up when someone praises them for being generous, but the moment the spotlight is gone, the kindness fades. Their generosity isn't an act of connection, but an act of branding. They're crafting an identity, the benevolent hero, and you become part of the audience expected to applaud them continuously. In private, the same generosity turns into a debt you never agreed to. They may remind you repeatedly of what they've done for you. They may use phrases like, "After everything I've done for you," or "You wouldn't have this without me." These reminders aren't accidental. They are intentional pressure points. They bring up their generosity during conflicts to make you feel guilty, small, or indebted. They expect compliance, loyalty, and silence in return for what they gave. And if you don't fall in line, they withdraw the generosity instantly, sometimes aggressively, exposing the transactional nature of their giving. The emotional confusion this creates can be powerful. You feel torn between gratitude and discomfort, appreciation and resentment. You question whether you're being unfair for feeling uneasy. But the truth is, generosity that comes with strings attached isn't generosity at all. With a narcissist, every gift is a contract, every favor is a hook, and every act of giving is actually an act of taking something from you later. When you look at a narcissist's financial behavior over time, you start to see a pattern that isn't random at all. It's a calculated mix of secrecy, impulsivity, and manipulation. They often create financial chaos, but that chaos isn't accidental. It serves as a smokescreen that allows them to hide things, shift blame, and keep control. They may open accounts without telling you, hide credit card statements, lie about their income, or pretend they're broke even when they're not. This secrecy creates an uneven power dynamic. They know the truth, and you don't. They hold the information, and you're left guessing. And when someone controls the information, they eventually control the decisions. One of the most common tactics they use is the creation of financial confusion. Narcissists thrive in environments where they can control the narrative, and confusion gives them the perfect environment to do so. They might deliberately complicate simple matters, insist that you don't understand how finances work, or drown you in unnecessary details until you give up trying to make sense of anything. Meanwhile, they keep making decisions behind your back. They may rack up debt you never knew existed, take financial risks you never agreed to, or funnel money into things that benefit only them. You're left trying to assemble a puzzle with half the pieces missing, and every time you ask for clarity, they respond with defensiveness, irritation, or accusations. They also engage in impulsive spending that sabotages stability. Narcissists often crave admiration, status, and instant gratification, so they'll buy things that give them a temporary ego boost, even if it jeopardizes your shared financial future. They might splurge on luxury items, trips, or experiences that make them look successful while ignoring bills, responsibilities, and long-term planning. When you question their spending, they act offended, as if you're attacking their identity rather than addressing a real financial issue. They want the freedom to make reckless choices, but expect you to deal with the consequences quietly. On the flip side, when it benefits them, they suddenly become extremely responsible, disciplined, or frugal. but only in ways that serve their own interests. For example, they might lecture you about saving money while secretly hiding their own spending or cutting back on shared expenses so they can fund personal indulgences. This double standard leaves you feeling confused and guilty, wondering if you're the problem, when in reality, they're creating an environment where logic doesn't apply unless they're the ones using it. What makes this pattern so damaging is that it destabilizes your sense of financial safety. You start doubting your ability to manage money because you're constantly dealing with their hidden decisions and erratic choices. You feel like you're always scrambling to catch up, fix the mess, or make sense of what's going on. And that's exactly what keeps you stuck. Financial manipulation becomes a cycle that drains your confidence, your resources, and over time, your sense of control over your own life. Entitlement is one of the most defining traits of a narcissist, and when it shows up in the financial realm, it becomes especially destructive. They move through life with an unspoken belief that they deserve more. More luxury, more attention, more exceptions, more benefits. This isn't just confidence or ambition. It's a deeply rooted conviction that the rules simply do not apply to them. When handling money, this entitlement becomes a quiet but constant force that shapes how they spend, how they demand, and how they treat the people around them. They believe their desires should take priority, even when those desires are irresponsible or unfair. To them, wanting something is the same as deserving it, and deserving it means someone else should pay the price if necessary. This entitlement shows up in their spending decisions. They may insist on buying high-status items even when they cannot afford them. They may pressure you to support their lifestyle, subtly or overtly expecting you to sacrifice your own needs so that they can maintain the image they believe they're owed. They often see luxury not as a treat, but as a necessity, something that validates their identity. If you question these expenses, they might react as if you're restricting their freedom or insulting their worth. They can turn a simple financial concern into a dramatic emotional wound, making you feel guilty for even bringing it up. Their entitlement is so rigid that they cannot fathom being questioned about it because in their mind, everything they want is reasonable by default. You might also notice that they expect special treatment in every financial environment. They believe they deserve discounts, shortcuts, or exceptions to policies. If a bank, company, or person doesn't give them what they think they're entitled to, they become enraged or victimized. They behave as though the world owes them something, and anyone who refuses is being disrespectful or unfair. This behavior can lead them into conflicts, risky decisions, or impulsive financial moves, all driven by their belief that regular rules are beneath them. Meanwhile, the consequences of these decisions often land on your shoulders, not theirs, because they see accountability as something meant for other people. Their entitlement also creates a double standard in relationships. They can expect you to contribute more, sacrifice more, and tolerate more than they ever would. They may demand financial loyalty without offering financial transparency. They may expect you to bail them out of trouble without acknowledging the strain it puts on you. They see your willingness to support them as proof of devotion, but they see their own responsibility as optional. This imbalance becomes emotionally draining because you start to feel like your needs are secondary, your boundaries are inconvenient, and your financial comfort is negotiable. Over time, their sense of entitlement can reshape how you view yourself. You begin to question why your needs feel smaller, why your concerns feel less valid, and why your financial stability seems less important than keeping them satisfied. Their entitlement becomes the gravity of the relationship, pulling everything toward their desires, while your own slowly fade into the background. Financial gaslighting is one of the most disorienting and emotionally exhausting tactics a narcissist uses because it attacks your sense of reality. Instead of manipulating through obvious control, they distort facts, twist timelines, deny conversations, and reshape financial events until you start doubting your own memory. What makes this so damaging is that money is tied to security, stability, and survival. When someone plays with your sense of truth in this area, the confusion becomes deeply unsettling. You start second-guessing your decisions, your competence, and even your intelligence. And once that doubt roots itself in your mind, they gain the upper hand without ever having to raise their voice. Financial gaslighting often starts small. They'll deny making a purchase you clearly remember. They'll pretend they don't know where a charge came from, even though they made it. They'll shift responsibility for an overdraft, a late payment, or a missing amount of money onto you with such confidence that you begin to question whether you misunderstood something. They might say things like, "You're overreacting," "You're imagining things," or "You never understand how money works." These phrases aren't random. They're carefully designed to weaken your clarity. If you can no longer trust your own perception, you become easier to control. And financial control is one of their most powerful tools. As the gaslighting intensifies, the contradictions become more blatant. They may promise you they paid a bill, only for you to discover later that it was never paid. When you confront them, they'll insist that you must have forgotten or that you're mixing things up. They may claim you authorized a purchase you never agreed to or accuse you of being irresponsible with money when the irresponsibility is entirely theirs. Every time you try to bring facts to the conversation, statements, receipts, screenshots, they find a way to twist the narrative. They'll say the receipt is old, the screenshot is misunderstood, or the statement doesn't show the full story. And what should be a simple discussion turns into a circular argument where nothing gets resolved except your growing self-doubt. This constant distortion makes you emotionally exhausted, and that exhaustion becomes another layer of control. When you're tired, overwhelmed, and unsure of your own memory, it becomes tempting to stop questioning them altogether. You let them handle the finances because battling over the truth feels impossible. And that's the point. Gaslighting isn't just about confusion, it's about surrender. It pushes you into a mental fog where their version of reality feels easier to accept than your own. Over time, this undermines your confidence in managing money, and you start believing that you genuinely need them to handle things, even though they're the ones creating the chaos. The most painful part of financial gaslighting is the emotional erosion it causes. You begin to wonder if you're too sensitive, too forgetful, too irresponsible. You take on guilt that doesn't belong to you. You shrink your voice because you're afraid of being wrong again. What began as a financial manipulation turns into an attack on your self-worth, leaving you feeling small, confused, and dependent in ways you never intended. A narcissist's lack of empathy becomes especially clear when money enters the picture, because finances are often tied to survival, dreams, and independence. When someone has no real concern for how their actions affect you financially, the harm goes beyond inconvenience. It becomes a kind of emotional cruelty that slowly wears down your confidence and sense of safety. A narcissist does not consider your financial needs, your stress levels, or the sacrifices you are making. They only consider what benefits them, and if your well-being happens to be collateral damage, they feel no genuine remorse. Their relationship with money mirrors their relationship with people: transactional, self-focused, and devoid of emotional responsibility. One way this shows up is through withholding. If they know you rely on them financially, they may purposely restrict access to money to keep you dependent. They might delay giving you what you need, make you beg, or attach conditions to something as basic as shared expenses. It becomes a silent punishment system. If you upset them or fail to meet their expectations, they find subtle ways to tighten your financial freedom. They want you to feel small, controlled, and insecure, because insecurity keeps you from pushing back. A healthy partner or family member uses money to support stability. A narcissist uses money to reinforce inequality. Another form of financial cruelty is sabotage. They may undermine your career by discouraging your ambitions, interrupting your work, or creating chaos when you're trying to focus. They might pressure you to quit a job they feel threatened by, or convince you that your goals are unrealistic. If you start succeeding financially, they may become jealous or hostile because your success disrupts the power imbalance they rely on. They want the narrative to be that you need them, not that you are capable on your own. And if they can chip away at your confidence little by little, they will. Their inability to empathize also shows up in moments where you are stressed, overwhelmed, or struggling financially. Instead of offering support, they dismiss your feelings, minimize your concerns, or blame you for problems they helped create. They may even mock your anxiety or act irritated that your financial stress is interrupting their comfort. In their world, your struggles are inconveniences, not realities that deserve compassion. This emotional coldness leaves you feeling isolated because money problems often require teamwork and understanding. But with a narcissist, you face them alone. Over time, this financial cruelty reshapes the way you see yourself. You begin to believe you are incapable, irresponsible, or undeserving of stability. Their lack of empathy becomes a message you internalize, that your needs don't matter, that your fears are exaggerated, and that you should be grateful for whatever scraps of support they offer. It creates a quiet desperation where you stay small to keep the peace, not realizing how much of your strength has been eroded by someone who never cared about the impact of their financial choices on your life. In the end, what makes these money-related habits of a narcissist so destructive isn't just the financial damage itself, but the emotional erosion that comes with it. When someone uses money as a weapon, generosity as leverage, confusion as control, entitlement as a rule, gaslighting as a strategy, and cruelty as a form of punishment, they chip away at your sense of stability in ways that go far deeper than any dollar amount. You begin to adapt to chaos that should never have been normal. You start accepting explanations that don't make sense. You shrink your needs, silence your instincts, and carry burdens that were never yours to hold. These patterns aren't simply about money, they're about power, safety, and your ability to trust yourself. The truth is, none of these behaviors reflect love, partnership, or respect. They reflect a person who sees relationships through the lens of control rather than connection. And once you understand the playbook, you start to see that their financial patterns were never your fault. They were designed to confuse you, weaken you, and keep you tied to them through fear, guilt, or obligation. But awareness is a turning point. When you recognize these habits for what they are, you reclaim the ability to make choices rooted in clarity rather than manipulation. You begin to rebuild your confidence, your independence, and your financial peace. The purpose of understanding these toxic patterns isn't to carry bitterness. It's to regain your power. It's to see clearly what once felt tangled. It's to honor your intuition again. When you step back and realize how much energy you spent trying to manage someone else's chaos, you also realize how much strength you have. And that strength becomes the foundation for healthier boundaries, healthier relationships, and healthier financial decisions moving forward. Recognizing the truth is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a more grounded, self-protected, and self-honoring chapter where your stability is no longer up for negotiation.